Hi, this is Pamela Parker, Research Director of the Content Studio at Third Door Media. And I'm here to remind you that the Search Engine Land Awards are now open for entries. So get your team recognized for the outstanding work they do in search marketing. Visit this link to enter today, and good luck.
Welcome, everyone, to the Search Marketer's Guide to Connected TV. This is going to be a follow-up session to my colleague Human's session from yesterday, really peeling back the onion and taking a deeper dive into connected TV, providing some actionable recommendations for all of us who are experts in the paid search and paid social space. So to introduce myself, I'm Eric Hatzenbuhler. I lead all of Mountain's paid media from a strategic and executional standpoint. Prior to my time at Mountain, I worked in paid media for a number of years across both the client side and agency side. I'm really excited to talk to you all today and bring CTV into your marketing mix. For today's key takeaway, we're really going to look at how you can bring what you know about paid search over to the CTV space and implement a very similar structure, a very similar strategy, and see efficient results and measurable results through the Mountain platform. Your paid search campaign structure can really be the foundation to building a strong and relevant and high performing CTV campaign and program. And the mindset of 5 to 10 years ago, where CTV felt out of reach, it felt complicated, it wasn't very measurable, and it definitely wasn't performance driven. Mountain has really eliminated that way of thinking and brought CTV to the forefront of performance marketing alongside paid search and paid social. So for today's agenda, we're going to talk about just a quick review of some of the best practices to make that jump from paid search to CTV. We're also going to talk about how to build a functional account structure to really set a strong foundation for your CTV program. And that will allow you to really scale, drive strong, measurable performance out of that account and program. We're also going to talk about where to find that budget for CTV. This is always a recurring conversation for any performance marketer. We're always looking to find where that next best dollar is spent across our marketing mix. I have a couple tips on how you can try and free up a little bit of budget to test out the CTV space and really expand into a new channel potentially for you and your business. And then, of course, A/B testing is a key component of everything we do in paid media and performance marketing. How does that work within the CTV space and on the Mountain platform specifically? We'll definitely talk through that as well. And like I said, we're not just CTV marketers. I myself, my core competency is definitely in paid search. I am a paid search marketer at heart, and here at Mountain, we understand the value of a full marketing mix and a full funnel approach. So paid search is at the core of what we do here. So is paid social, so is CTV. Our recommendation is not to eliminate any activity you're doing across those channels. It's to supplement that and really build out and fully flesh out your program to drive the best performance for you. So we recommend a mix of tactics. We understand that performs best. All channels perform best when they're working together. And we really think about CTV as generating demand. It's absolutely a performance channel. We have measurable results and outcomes, but think about it as demand generation. Paid search is more of that demand capture channel for the most part. So that's kind of how we're going to approach today. Like I said, through the lens of a true paid media marketer, not just a CTV marketer. So just a quick review of the best practices for connected TV. And again, I strongly recommend you check out my colleague Human's presentation from yesterday if you didn't have a chance to already do so. He talks through a lot of the best practices to take paid search structure and strategy into CTV. So just a quick review of some of those. A sophisticated campaign structure, especially with how automated everything is these days across paid search, paid social, programmatic display, CTV, and everything. Our campaign structure allows us to control the levers a little bit more and as much as we can to optimize budgets, to ensure that our ads are as relevant as possible for our core audience and our target audience. So we're going to talk through that. Optimizing your budget. I mentioned this a little bit already. Um, that third one there, using your existing keyword targets. This can be a really valuable way to find out what audience segments you can target on CTV. Take a look at your campaign structure and paid search. What keywords are you targeting? How do you have your ad groups segmented? And how can you bring that to CTV in an efficient way and really mirror what you're doing in paid search? A/B testing, of course, we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. And then relevancy, like I said, this ties into the campaign structure and the account structure overall. How do we make the ad that our user is seeing as relevant as possible to what they're searching for, what we want to show them, so on and so forth. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But for the most part, we're really going to focus in on these three core foundational components of your CTV account and program. So the campaign structure, budget optimization, and A/B testing. These are what I think of as the foundational pillars. If you don't have these three set up appropriately and in the best way for your business and your account, then it's going to be difficult to really scale and drive performance out of any channel, CTV included in that. So let's dive right in. Campaign structure. This is the really core, the meat and potatoes of what you're going to be doing and building within the CTV program and on the Mountain platform. So we really think of our account structure very similar to a traditional marketing funnel. We have prospecting at the very top, we have our mid funnel approach, and then we have what we think of as our lower funnel approach. And under each of those categories, I've kind of mirrored up how I think about the equivalent on the paid search side. So prospecting, really think about that as your phrase and broad match non-brand keywords. You're reaching users who are likely unfamiliar with your brand, just likely researching or beginning to research the industry or product set, category that you play in. But in all likelihood, this is going to be more of a traffic driver, not a lot of conversion volume, higher CPAs, but lower CPCs along with this audience. In the mid funnel, think about that as maybe your exact match non-brand keyword. So these are those core non-brand terms that you've identified either through the collection of historical data or other means, business goals, business outcomes. You've identified this set of core non-brand keywords as really strong drivers for your business. They're strong drivers of traffic. Potentially, they do drive some conversion volume as well. There's a healthy balance here of relevancy and users who are potentially ready to take action and convert for your product or service, but may also not be familiar with your specific brand and searching for that. And then we think of lower funnel as equivalent to your brand keywords. This is your bread and butter in the paid search program. These are users who are familiar with your brand. They've likely already done their research. In the CTV space, we think of these users potentially more in the retargeting realm. We'll talk a little bit more about exactly what types of audiences not only we're targeting in each of these funnels, but how you can kind of apply that same strategy and thinking to your own needs and your own business, because every organization is different. All businesses are different and their outcomes and requirements are different. So we'll talk through that as well. All right, so campaign structure, the mountain way, as we like to call it. So I mentioned the top of the funnel. This is where we think of prospecting. Our approach in this set is to really segment your campaigns at the prospecting level, however you see fit. And again, thinking about your paid search structure at the same time. So we segment our prospecting audience into interest and in market, and then job function. So as a B2B marketing team, we're really focused on reaching other marketers, other advertisers in the space. So the job functionality and the ability to target audiences based on job function and industry and role is vital for us, because we want to make sure that, as a marketer, we're not reaching someone who works in IT and is not a stakeholder for potentially bringing CTV to their marketing mix. So we segment that structure and that audience into a separate campaign. Then we also have our interest in market. This is what I would think of and I view as truly top of the funnel. More general interest in digital marketing, interest in CTV, interest in advertising. This audience is more for building brand awareness, driving thought leadership and traffic to the website, but doesn't show a lot of conversion volume. So, keep that in mind as you're thinking about what your KPIs are for each of these stages of the funnel. Align that with your business. If there are pieces of content you want people to download, maybe an email newsletter or sign up for them. This is an audience that's more likely to take that action than maybe convert at your most desired conversion action the first time visiting the site. In the mid funnel and the lower funnel, it gets a little bit more targeted. So the mid funnel for us, we use CRM data, and this is a great feature of the Mountain platform. We're able to upload a contacts list to the platform and match that audience against households across the United States and target those users that way. So this can be incredibly valuable for us to keep our ads and our brand in front of the eyeballs of the people our business has identified as a really core target audience for us. And the same can be done for you. So uploading that customer list, if you have that, ensuring that they have their own campaign so that you can control the budget and how much budget is allocated towards that audience can be a really core and vital piece of what you're doing in CTV. It's just a great feature, a really unique feature to be able to bring an ABM and an accounts list and a contacts list into CTV and reach those users on their television screens. That's just a testament to the modern age that we're in and the ability to target now. On the retargeting side, as I mentioned earlier, that's what we think of as lower funnel. This is typically, a broader campaign targeting potentially all site visitors within the last 30 days. I recommend you align that look back window with your business needs. If you have a longer sales cycle, maybe 90 days or 4 to 6 months, align that look back window for your site visitor audience with your sales cycle, because you don't want to remove someone from that audience potentially before they're likely to purchase if it is a longer cycle. On the flip side, if you have a shorter purchase cycle, maybe you have a product that tends to sell very quickly, there's not a lot of research and decision making involved. Maybe think about lowering that cycle, because users who fall maybe outside of 14 days may no longer be interested in your product. They could potentially be eligible for a recapture campaign in a separate campaign. But just kind of think about how you want to align that look back window for your business needs and your strategies. And then we also drive our retargeting audience through CTV to a specific landing page that's a little bit more conversion focused. So we understand that this audience, again, has visited our site, they're familiar with our brand. If they are coming back to the site, they are more likely to convert than the prospecting audience, potentially even the ABM. So driving them to a landing page that has a conversion form above the fold, a very clear action that we want them to take, that can be also incredibly valuable in driving strong performance out of this campaign subset. And then one tip with your retargeting, and again, this is an incredible feature of the Mountain platform. Um, it's not just a general site visitor audience. I mentioned that's how sort of we approach things. That's what works well for our business. But because of our integration with Google Analytics, we have the ability to adjust a lot of different levers from site visitors and target audiences that way. So if a user has visited your site multiple times, if they viewed multiple pages, if they're considered an engaged user, if they, were on site for more than 5 minutes, you can segment your audience within the platform using all of these different levers and then target them based, potentially driving to different landing pages. If you have your own definition for an engaged user, you can consider that someone maybe higher intent, more likely to purchase. Maybe serve them different creative. There's an endless number of possibilities with this type of feature and capability in the platform. So again, think about how you can be really creative with this for your business. It's not just set up that site visitor, set a look back window, launch the campaign, and never touch it again. You can get really segmented and play around with this, which is, again, as a performance marketer who loves to test and learn, something I absolutely love about the Mountain platform. So we mentioned this a little bit, but I want to reiterate it at this point. CTV is a complement to paid search. We're all paid search marketers. We understand the value of paid search and what it brings, and what a strong driver of traffic and conversions it can be. We want to think about all of these channels alongside paid search, whether that's CTV, paid social. The structure remains the same. We think of prospecting as broader but still relevant non-brand. We think of retargeting as sort of that scalable, really efficient brand and non-brand. Um, but yeah, we run paid search. Paid search is vital to what we do. So think about and continue to think about as you do launch and run CTV, how these channels are working together, potentially aligning messaging, creative, landing page experience. Um, they work best when they're playing in the same space, and when you're really optimizing the strategy, thinking about both at the same time instead of just focusing on CTV in its own segment and paid search in its own. They work best together. So continuously think about it that way. So how do we make the budget work for you? And where do we find budget to test and run CTV? Uh, CTV can be an affordable portion of your marketing mix. Again, I talked about the approach to CTV and the mindset even when I started in the paid media space. It was expensive. Creative was difficult to come by. It was typically placed with some type of, IO or direct buy. There were contracts and minimums, and a lot of that really made it difficult to even want to run CTV, or convince other stakeholders on your team, if or organization or your clients, to run CTV. Uh, so where do we find that budget? It's not nearly as much as it used to be. It doesn't take as much effort and as much budget to run CTV these days as it used to. So where do we find that now? My biggest recommendation is, I'll talk about paid search specifically, but look at all of your channels and find where potential inefficient spend exists. Are there campaigns that you've been running for a number of months or quarters that really aren't driving a lot of performance for you, or they're not meeting your primary KPIs? But there may be just a campaign that's been thought of as evergreen and it's always on. And yeah, we run that, but we just kind of run it because we feel like we should. Think about changing that mindset and pulling some of that budget out of those channels and into CTV. And when I say pulling that budget, I specifically mean inefficient spend out of those channels. Um, Efficient dollars in paid search and paid social, we understand the value of that. Again, we want that to exist within your marketing mix. But find ways to look at your keywords that are potentially driving high cost and high traffic without any desired action a user's taking on the site. Review your on-site metrics and your analytics to determine if those users are potentially, not engaging with your site at a rate that you'd like them to. Is that an opportunity to, maybe pause some of those keywords, pull that budget over to CTV as a test? If it's not driving any value now, to test something new can only help you. So think about it with that mindset. Figure out. I love to think about paid search in a demand curve type of format. Brand, of course, is going to be finite in the search volume and the potential volume there. Ideally, that's growing over time, of course, and you're continuing to capture that excess demand. But at some point, you're going to hit a point of diminishing returns within paid search and a lot of other channels. So when you do hit that point, instead of investing more money to drive nothing or a small amount for your business, take that and test it somewhere else. And CTV should be that channel at this point in time. Um, and the budget optimization doesn't stop once you just kick off CTV. Once you have data within the Mountain platform, continue to optimize and allocate your budgets within CTV itself. I mentioned we run prospecting, we run ABM and retargeting. We're constantly looking at how can we reallocate budget amongst those campaigns and amongst our audiences to maximize our performance and our outcomes. Retargeting is something that, of course, is going to drive strong conversion volume for us. So how do we maximize that without potentially over investing to the point where maybe our frequencies go up too much? We're serving ads too often. We've all seen the same ad a dozen times within an hour and thought, wow, those people should think about scaling back a little bit. So keep that in mind. But there's a lot of opportunity to just reinvest within the platform itself. I typically wouldn't recommend doing that more than once or twice a month, just because of the look back windows. CTV, think of that as more of the paid social programmatic display realm from a conversion standpoint. You don't want to be in there tweaking the daily budgets or the monthly budgets every day. That's just not going to allow the algorithm to do its job. So once or twice a month, review your performance, make those shifts and reallocations within your campaigns in the platform, and that can really drive strong performance for you and your business. And I mentioned this tip a little bit, but frequency is really key, especially with the retargeting and ABM audiences. Not something we have to worry as much about for prospecting. Those audience segments are so large, unless you have incredibly large budgets. But even in that case, you can just add additional relevant segments out of our platform, which has an endless amount, it seems. So there are a lot of opportunities for you to reinvest those dollars against ABM and retargeting. But just like brand on the paid search side, those are finite audiences. So the more you invest, the higher your frequency goes. You want to make sure that frequency is in line with, again, what works for your business. There's no right or wrong frequency. If your goal is brand awareness, if your goal is traffic, if your goal is conversions, return on ad spend, CPA, that frequency, ideal frequency, is going to differ depending on your primary KPI. So think about what works for your business, what works for your outcomes and what your desired results are, and think about sticking around that frequency as you try to look for additional investment opportunity and scale, specifically within ABM and retargeting audiences. And then the number of creatives can also impact the frequency metrics as well. So like I said, creative is an area of CTV where it feels like you may need massive budgets and high production value. At Mountain, in coordination with QuickFrame and our creative as a service, or creative as a subscription model, we provide a lot of creative for advertisers as well. So creative can be a great way to differentiate yourselves, introduce some variation to your users over time, and that can also really lower your frequency and allow you to scale into some of these audiences a little bit more moving forward. So A/B testing is my favorite thing about paid media. A/B testing. I love testing. I love identifying the results, sharing the results. I've been humbled a countless number of times in my career, thinking that version A was going to crush version B, and the data tells a different story. So how do we take A/B testing and implement that in the CTV space? Again, you have all the tools and the knowledge to do this. You do it in paid search. It's the same approach. Of course, the key with testing anything in A/B testing, only test one variable at a time. Within the Mountain platform, there's video creative, you have the audience extension creative, you have landing pages, you have audiences. There are an endless number of things you could test, but don't get too tricky or impatient and try to test multiple variables all at once. It just muddies the data, it muddies the results. It doesn't provide the value that you're hoping for when you can't determine what the true impact or factor was in the outcome and the result of that test. So focus on one thing, test that. Once you have that outcome, you can move on to another variable or phase two if need be. But be patient in your testing. I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen in my career, in paid media specifically, because we're a channel that we can be live so quickly and we can start to see data and results and outcomes within a few hours of launching campaigns. Oftentimes we get really impatient about calling tests or reaching confidence levels. It just be patient, especially in CTV with the look back windows. Keep in mind that if you're launching maybe a version 2 against a version 1 that's been running for a couple months, that version 1 already has enough data to complete an entire look back window. So when you introduce version 2, at minimum, you're going to need the full look back window to really compare results in an apples to apples type of way. So consider that look back window when you launch tests set that expectation within your organization or your team or your clients that, hey, we're going to monitor this. Of course, we're going to provide updates along the way, but we don't feel confident potentially calling these results until we reach statistical significance, or at the very least, we reach that look back window limit, and then we can truly compare things on the same scale and at the same level. And then in terms of creative testing within the Mountain platform, it's incredibly easy, the easiest out of any platform I've ever used. All that you need to do is set the percent split that you want that individual creative to serve against the audience, and you're done. So if you have two creatives, you want to run a true A/B test. You enter 50% into one creative, 50% into the other. They'll both serve evenly. You can identify the results very easily within the platform. The reporting dashboard is incredibly customizable. You can create your own tables, your own views, graphs, whatever it might be, to make your results and your analyzing as easy as possible. It really it's so easy in the platform. I say that I've probably said easy about 8 times in the last 5 minutes, but it really is. So I encourage A/B testing. We encourage A/B testing. It's absolutely vital to what you do. And, even a 1% improvement with each test over the course of a year or 2 years, you've started to make significant impact on your business and your outcomes. So always keep that in mind. And then for testing at scale, I just wanted to share an outcome of a recent test that we ran ourselves at Mountain. So within the CTV space, we have 15-second and 30-second placements. We wanted to test, and we have tested, and we have a lot of that data. Mountain Research, if you haven't heard about it already, has a great full piece on this, that on creative outcomes and length testing and everything like that. I encourage you to check out Mountain Research if you have the opportunity. So we wanted to run a 15-second versus 30-second ad and see which performed best. And the results were a little bit surprising and also inconclusive, depending on what your outcome and desired primary KPI is. So the 15-second ad actually drove a 22% higher visit rate. So we were driving more traffic to the Mountain website when the 15-second ad was served. However, we saw an 18% lower conversion rate with that ad. So again, think about what your desired outcomes are. It's so important to establish that desired outcome and what your key KPI is going to be, what your primary indicator and result is going to be when you evaluate a test. Because in this case, you might come out of it and say, well, we drove more traffic, but we drove a lower conversion rate. What's the outcome? It's so important to establish that desired outcome ahead of time so that you could come out of this test and say, we were trying to drive more traffic. This drove more traffic. Let's lean in more to the 15-second ad, or potentially the opposite if you were trying to drive more conversions. Our recommendation, again, test for your business. We always recommend both a 15 and 30-second ad running together. It can be the same creative. They can be different. But for the most part, 15 and 30 seconds just really complement each other. It gives your account and your approach a healthy balance, gives some variation to the users as they're viewing ads on their CTV services. So it's just a really endless opportunity, I would say, A/B testing on CTV and within the Mountain platform. So explore and play with it as much as you can. All right, and that's all I have today. I hope you found this information valuable. I hope you can take some of this feedback. If you all are already running CTV campaigns, you can apply some of this knowledge if it's something that you're looking into. I encourage you to visit mountain.com. There's a ton of incredibly useful information there. Any questions that you have about CTV and getting started can be answered there. Of course, you can request a demo of our platform as well. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to help answer them. You can reach out to me. My email is listed there, as well as my LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out, and I'm absolutely happy to connect and talk anything paid media, CTV, paid search, anything you've got. I'm happy to help out. So thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you for watching. Click the agenda link at the top of your screen to choose your next session.